Welcome to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. This is the place where we help mission-driven messengers just like you learn how to build and monetize your personal brand. My name is Rory Vaden, and I'm the co-founder of Brand Builders Group, a Hall of Fame speaker, and New York Times bestselling author. And this show is to help experts learn how to become more wealthy and well-known. I know you're going to love it. Thanks for being here. Let's get started.
One of the great privileges of my life is when our clients succeed and getting to feel like we've played a small part in helping somebody do something awesome in their own life. And we never get to take credit for it because it's not our credit to take, it's their credit to take. But this next gentleman that you're about to hear from is one of my favorite success stories, one of my personal friends, mine and AJ's. We've known him for a very long time, and you're going to hear some of that story. And he was one of our very first Brand Builders Group clients. Early on, he knew us from our former life. And so a couple years into Brand Builders Group, he joined us. And I'll give you the formal bio, okay? So Ian Koniak is our longtime friend, but he is the president and he is the founder of Untap Your Sales Potential, which helps sellers go from good to great by mastering mindset, habits, and skills needed to perform at the highest level in sales. He has sold over $100 million in revenue in his career, and he is the former #1 enterprise account executive for Salesforce.com. He has also worked in the Dean of Pavilion's Enterprise Sales School, and he's a speaker, he's a coach, he's an expert in sales. That's where we met him years and years ago, over decades ago at this point. And Ian leads sales training workshops for Fortune 500 companies. He speaks on stages. He appears in the media has been on several of the top 100 podcasts. And I'll go ahead and just spill the beans. 4 years into his business, so he started with Brand Builders Group about 4 years ago. His 4th year in the business, he did $3.5 million in annual revenue. He is qualified for the Inc. 5000 list in his first year of eligibility, and is just someone that we kind of hold up as a model to go, look at what's possible. So with that, Ian, welcome to the show.
So good to see you again, man. It was great to see you briefly in LA, and I'm excited to dive into the story and how we built it.
So yeah, just for people who don't know, so we met you through AJ. AJ ran a sales training workshop for your sales team back in 2008.
Yeah, it was right before you wrote the book, Take the Stairs. So
okay, so it would have been, that was probably more like 2010, 2011, 2010, something like that, because the book came out in 2012. So, but over a decade ago, so we met you in a former life, became friends, and stayed in touch. Then we exited that business, started over with Brand Builders Group, and then a couple years later, we reconnected. Mm-hmm. When did you start Untap Your Sales Potential?
I launched Untap Your Sales Potential in May of 2022. Okay. I originally had started a business called Ian Koniak Sales Coaching after starting with Brand Builders Group, and we had focused on doing business-to-business training. So we'd go to big companies and we'd train their sales team. And I quickly realized I was trading time for money and that wasn't going to scale. And so I decided to pivot from B2B to B2C and sell directly to the individual sellers, there are millions of them, and create a program that had a combination of one-on-ones, but also group coaching and online training as well via a course. So we launched in May of 2022 was our first launch. I had already been on my own for about a year, had left Salesforce for about a year at that point.
Okay. Yeah. So you joined us around 2020, something like that, a couple years after.
It was 2019 to 2020, in that range, before I had left Salesforce and when I was building my business while working still at corporate is when I worked with brand builders. And then I stayed with you guys to do several workshops where we did, content workshop. We spent a 2 day with Jeremy and the team kind of thinking about the structure for Untap Your Sales Potential. And I continued to work with your implementation team on building out the portal and Kajabi and really getting the infrastructure set up around the LMS and everything that went along with that.
Yeah. So it's just, I want people to know that because it's like, it's amazing. First of all, congratulations on $3.5 million in annual revenue in your fourth year.
Thank you, brother.
That's,
And I'll say we're running about 60% margin. We just got the P&L. So really good margin on the business as well, after, cost of delivery and payroll and whatnot. So it's a profitable business. It's not just revenue.
yeah. And I want to hear about the business model, but I just, for those of you listening to go, you know, Ian started with us and it didn't really, not like it necessarily took off in those first couple of years. You were working at your corporate job, you were posting videos on LinkedIn, but just to fast forward for everybody to go, if you knew that 5 years from now, if you followed a system and you worked the plan and you did the things that we told you to do and you executed, and like, if you knew that in 5 years, you would generate $3.5 million, would you be willing to pay the price for 5 years? Like, would you be willing to make the sacrifices? Would you invest in the training and the coaching and making the videos? So take us back, Ian, to your first videos on LinkedIn and how you started there.
So this is a real important point for all your audience is when I launched Untap Your Sales Potential in 2022,
Okay.
I did a launch that was six figures immediately. It was like 250, 300,000 for in a day or two since launching, to the point where PayPal shut me down, Stripe shut me down because they didn't know if it was real or not. So I had to be submitting docs in the middle of the launch to let them know, hey, this is legit. Because the cards weren't going through because they stopped us. We were doing so well. And I share that because that was a result of the prior 3 years of building a brand and building an audience and building trust, to the point where I had a big wait list, I had credibility. So when I finally had a product, Untap Your Sales Potential, the demand was literally seaming. And that is really what you're asking about, is how did you get to that point? Because the revenue comes as a lagging indicator of the leading indicators that you do, the KPIs that you're doing. So my journey started with brand builders. It really started with you, Rory. You were just starting the company and we had our call, and you said you came at the perfect time. But I had a near-death experience in December of 2018. And it was, I won't get too detailed, but it helped me realize that my life had been very self-serving. It had been very focused on me and what I could do for myself and my family. And I was really focused on money and recognition and a lot of the things that sellers tend to focus on. And when
the culture encourages you to focus on those things, a lot of the sales culture.
It's a performance culture and leadership. And that was the world I lived in for my whole life. And so what happened is I got stuck upside down on a roller coaster and hung up there for 30 minutes.
No way.
Yes, way. And my life flashed before my eyes. I thought I would die. And what I realized is if I died, all of my wisdom, all of my knowledge, all my gifts, all my lessons would have died with me, and I wouldn't have made a legacy and helped other people. And I promised to God when I was hanging up, I said, I will not wait any longer. I don't know what it's going to look like. And I promise I will start serving people now. And at that moment, the ride took off. And that was my origin story for my business. And shortly thereafter, I called you and you said, hey, we just started this thing. You'd be perfect for it. And I took the leap of faith. So at that point, I had no plan. I had no business model. I did not have a way to monetize. I just had you as a mentor.
And FYI, yeah. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. So that is, you're upside down on a roller coaster. You decide, I'm going to do this. Then what happened? So then you found us.
So then I found you, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and you had all that stuff go down where now brand builders had started, and it was like divine time. It was perfect. And I flew out to Tennessee and went to the Finding Your Brand DNA workshop. And one of the things that we discussed is just building an audience, and I decided to do what was called the 365-day challenge. And every day I was going to post a video, 1 minute or less, a short video giving a tip and giving some help in terms of either personal development or sales or mindset or habits, or just kind of sharing my playbook, my secrets to being successful that I had kept with me. And the goal simply was, if I died, at least I know I was helping people. And I did that on Instagram. I spent every day building on Instagram, and I built a good following on Instagram. And what happened was,
like how many people? Like when you say good following, this is not millions of people. I want
no. It was like thousands. It was like 5, 6,000, and it was engaged. The videos were getting hundreds of views each time. But I had a lot of people that loved the content, and that was not how I got my business monetized. What happened was, I was building all the infrastructure for my brand at Brand Builders. During the year, I was also posting a video a day. So when I say infrastructure, what I mean is, I was building my content. I was building my presentation. I was structuring what I was going to teach. I was looking at the website, the logos, the actual copy for my site, everything that goes into the foundation I was building while doing these videos. And so I spent a year building all this, call it the newsletter, the infrastructure, the website. And then what I realized quickly is that Instagram wasn't where my people were. It was great for me getting comfortable being on camera, and it was great for me learning to be consistent and have discipline around content creation. But what I ended up doing in January of 2020 was I took all of that strategy that I had on Instagram, I launched my newsletter, I launched my website, I launched my blog, and I moved it over to LinkedIn. And that's where my business started really exploding, is in 2020, when I changed platforms and went to LinkedIn, because the people I was talking to were all sellers working at tech companies, and they were on LinkedIn. They weren't on Instagram. And so that was really what ended up happening, is I built the muscle of content creation and video creation and communication on Instagram. That was my beta. And then when I moved to LinkedIn, now I had a way to capture all of the audience via my newsletter. So I started building up this newsletter in 2020, and built that pretty substantial for the next, I'd say, 2 years. And on LinkedIn, once I started posting, I would get a lot of DMs, and people would say, Ian, can you coach me? Do you coaching? Can you help me? And I started doing one-on-one coaching as my initial revenue stream. And that was really, we made about $70,000 while I was at Salesforce in 2020. And then I would do a couple keynotes to a few businesses. And that was really the year. I'll take one more step back. I had some personal challenges where I was going through all this, but I was also living a double life and struggling with addiction, which
I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about that in a second. I want to rewind though, just to, I think so many people go, oh, well, Ian got lucky. He went viral, built millions of followers. And it's like, that's not the story here. The story is you had 5,000 or 6,000 followers, but they were legit followers on Instagram. And then you moved to LinkedIn. You said you build your newsletter. Did that mean you had millions of people in your newsletter?
Oh
or how many? I hope you don't mind, because since you're one of ours, I'm drilling into the details.
Yeah, please.
Big was your newsletter at the end of that first year on LinkedIn?
Maybe 1,000 people, maybe. I mean, it was very slow in the beginning.
1,000 people. So you said I built it substantial, and I want to clarify for people, because some people think, oh, substantial is James Clear. He's got 3 million people on his email list. We're talking 1,000, but they were 1,000 real humans. They were
sellers, all target audience, all ICP, and my LinkedIn following by the end of that year was probably 5,000. So again, very small at this point before going full time. because it wasn't about the following, it was about the content creation, about the program creation, the system creation, and it was about getting money. So these folks that were following me, they were reaching out, they were highly engaged, and they were willing to pay for one-on-one coaching with me. And for me, that was really validating that I had a business model that could replace my Salesforce income, because I was one of the top reps at Salesforce. I was making great money. I was the sole breadwinner for my family. I wanted to know that if I was going to go and do this full time and run my brand and my coaching business full time, that I could replace my Salesforce income without skipping a beat. And so,
And we still, to this day, we still teach what we call the fast cash formula, which is posting a video every day, asking your friends and family for referrals, offering one-on-one coaching. And it's like, we teach all the like templates and everything to this day. And it's like, you did that and then you scaled. Okay. But there's a big part in between that I want to talk about, which is maybe not so pretty, because here's your origin story. And now we see you today and it's like 3.5 million in revenue. But there's a big part of your journey that happened, Ian, that I also want people to know. And whatever level of truth you feel comfortable sharing, but I want people to know the real story of what happened in your life, because it was not sunshine and rainbows. It was not viral. It was not Oprah discovered you. It was not you hit it big on the lottery. Like, so can you tell us like what was going on?
Yeah, I would love to. And I want to, for the audience listening, this is heavy and it's very real and raw. And,
yeah, a bit of a trigger warning here too. Just like if you have little baby ears nearby, like probably this is adult. We're going to have adult conversation for a minute.
Yeah. So here's what was going on. I was a very high performing seller and I was a high functioning addict. So I had struggled with addiction my entire life, drugs, alcohol, and sex. And those things were a big part of how I got validation and how I coped with the stress and the overwhelm of the pressure I'd put on myself and just the general, I would say, excess. I was living in flesh and desires of the flesh. And in 2020, after a year of being in brand builders, what I started, and I say it's God's grace and it was a sign from God, but I started realizing that I had a double life. And here I was trying to coach and trying to train and be this role model. And in my personal life, I was hiding secrets from my wife. I was going to strip clubs and massage parlors, and I was watching pornography, and I wasn't telling my wife any of this stuff. And I decided I wanted to confess to my wife in 2020. It was February 13th, 2020. This is the exact date. And I had a guilty conscience. I knew that I could not be the man that I proclaimed to be publicly if I had private secrets and if I wasn't living in full authenticity and full truth. And I give full glory to God with this, because it wasn't me. It was a calling. It was a deep moral calling of living a righteous life. And I wanted to break free of this. And I had tried on my own for many years and just continued to slip and compartmentalize this activity and rationalize. And rationalize stands for rational lies, because they're rational, but you're lying to yourself. And any addict or anyone who struggles knows what I'm talking about. And I couldn't do it on my own. So I decided to confess to my wife. And I told her I was specifically, I was going on webcams. I didn't tell her the full extent of what I was doing, but I said, I'm watching porn, I'm watching webcams. And she's like, what's that? I'm like, well, it's basically women who are now, unfortunately, it's more rampant than ever with OnlyFans, but it's webcams of real women. And I said, I know how you feel about porn. I know how you feel about strip clubs. I just wanted to tell you I'm doing this and get your thoughts. And she collapsed. She fell to the ground. She was 4 months pregnant, and she started trembling and shaking. And then she started having labor contractions, and we thought we were going to lose the baby. So I went and rushed to the hospital. And the whole way to the doctor, I'm praying. I said, God, I don't know what I've done, but please don't take this baby. I promise I will change. I promise I will get help. Please don't take this baby. And we get to the doctor. He puts the ultrasound, and it was the longest 30 seconds of my life. I'm hysterical. And He looks up and he said, "There's a heartbeat. The baby's okay." And I said, "Thank God, thank God." He's like, "What, were you cheating? What'd you do?" And I said something like that. I'm like, "Does this happen a lot?" He says, "I see it every week.
Wow.
Women coming in because their men are hiding and living a lie or keeping secrets from their wife." And that to me was the beginning of my rebirth. That was when I found God. That was when I found Christ. I was baptized in last year after 5 years of studying, and I got into recovery for addiction. I stopped brand builders, and I said, no matter what happens, the most important thing in the world is to keep my family together and to break this generational curse that was, frankly, long before me, before I was born. This has been in my family, and I was exposed to things at a very young age. And that was the life I inherited, and I made a decision that this would stop with me, and my kids would not inherit what I did, and I devoted myself to recovery, and that was my focus for 2020. And I share that because that was necessary for me to get where I am today. And it was part of my brand building. It wasn't just sales training. I was talking about authenticity and integrity and all the things that I had to do in order to get to a place where I would attract people from a place of truth and from a place of love and service. I had to face my own demons first before I can do that. And I'll just tell you this, while my brand is focused on helping sellers untap their full potential, the amount of people and men specifically who have reached out that have struggled with similar afflictions is more than I can ever even think was possible, saying, "Me too. I've been doing this in secret." And I've helped a lot of people get into recovery for a very taboo addiction that I don't think anyone really talks about, but is rampant in our society with porn and with the access that we have. So it's been 5 years, and by God's grace, I am living a life of honesty and integrity with my wife, and been sober for 5 years, and I'm very proud of those changes, and that's been part of my story, is sharing some of these very personal things. And in the process, it's attracted a lot of sellers who tend to struggle with some of these areas and some of these addictions. It's very common in that business and sales space. And a lot of people have come to me because of that, because of my faith, because of my battles with addiction and ADHD and all the personal changes I've made and speak to. It's attracted a lot of people to my business and my brand. And that's one of the main things they cite as the reason they've signed up, is that vulnerability and that story.
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And part of there's so many powerful parts of it. One of the connections I want people to make, though, is on the surface, you would think that sharing all of those things would destroy your personal brand.
Mhm.
You would think it would eliminate people from paying you. You would think you would just get trashed and havocked and trolled online about all of these things. And I'm sure you've received some of those, which you would receive anyways. You receive some of that anyways. But sharing the hard parts of your story doesn't usually hurt the business. It usually helps the business long term, because people go, "Oh, Ian is he's a real dude. He struggled with real things, and he is really willing to lay it all out there." And I'm not saying that would be the strategy everyone should follow, that you would just take all of your darkest secrets and lay them out on the web. And I also don't think you're saying that you did that right away. You
No.
shared it with your wife, you dealt with this, you went to recovery, you healed from it, you moved on. And then later, it's like you don't share your hurts while it's an open wound. You share it once it's a scar, and not
Once
even
you're
once
out of
it's a
it, once
scab.
you're in a healthy place and you're out of it. I mean, you're never entirely out of addiction. There's always, temptation, but fundamentally you're spot on. Like when I was in it, I was saving my family and my marriage, and more importantly, like living a life I could be proud of and God could be proud of. And I share it now because I believe it's part of God's will to talk about the things no one else is willing to, because people need to know they're not alone, and especially men who struggle and shame with some of these activities, and married men who are hiding secrets from their partners. I don't know anyone that talks about this personally, and I just think it needs to be done. Whether or not it stains my brand, whether or not people don't want to work with me is irrelevant. I'm doing, in my mind, God's will by helping people have loving, honest marriages, which you're best positioned to serve the person you once were. And that was me hiding. So that's what I'm saying. Hundreds of men have come out to me and said, hey, me too. How can I get help? And that for me is the most fulfilling, even if I'm not getting paid for it.
And that, I want people to also know, like, that is all a part of why we're proud of you, right? We're not only proud of the mission-driven messengers who have led a perfect life and grown their business. It's the part that makes me so proud of you, Ian, is the part where you said, I don't care if it hurts my brand. I don't care if I lose revenue over it. I'm doing this to help people.
Yes.
And that's the part where you go, I'm willing to risk whatever it is about me if it's in the service of others. And you are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were, right? I mean, that's why we say it all the time. And you go, and it's amazing. You talk about God, like God specializes in resurrections, right? Like God specializes in redemption. God specializes in using broken people. God specializes in using people who aren't perfect. And you go, you look through the Bible, whether it's, Moses, who was a Hebrew, you talk about, David, who was a shepherd, Jesus, who was like literally born in a stable to a poor family, like Paul, who was a murderer. Like, our God specializes in using broken people and making things beautiful. And I think one of the reasons why he does that is because that's part of how he gets the glory. Is he gets the glory in those redemption stories, to go, how could you survive this? How could you and your wife are happily married. You have multiple children now. You are talking on a podcast to the whole world, airing your dirty secrets, so to speak. And it's like, how could that happen? Because God is blessing it. He's redeeming it. Now, I do want to make sure people know, you don't do this when it's a scab. You do it once it's a scar. That's kind of like the general rule of thumb that I, try to delineate. It's like, you cannot do this while this is fresh. You have to, like you said, you have to be in a place where it's healthy. You're past it. And that's when you talk about it. But Ian, what a beautiful redemption story.
I'm getting emotional, man. It's so spot on. It's like everything we go through, right? Everything we've been through that we can't fix on our own strengthens our faith and strengthens our connection with God. And that's the cornerstone of my story is I can't, but God can. And my story is a glorification
Amen.
to God, because everything that brought me to a rock bottom and brought me to that place of full surrender, brought me to Christ, brought me to my faith. And it's still ongoing. It's like when you think you can, you're humbled. And it's always to lead us back to God. And ironically, you just said, do this when it's your scar, not your scab. Our next theme of our next mastermind, in which we have 80 people coming together from our community from around the world, is make your scars your superpowers. That's the theme of our next mastermind. So yes, we're a sales training, but we're going to go deep in terms of bringing out things that people may be ashamed of, that are holding them back. Because once you're free, the most free person in the world is the one with nothing to hide. And that's been the genesis of my brand, is once I had nothing to hide, once I put it all out there, I was free to serve. I didn't have this baggage and this heavy weight that I was carrying, because I truly was in service and I was leading with spirit. And I say that because it's such a blessing to have gone through this, and it is such glory to God. So I'm really glad that you see it that way. That's the way I see it too. And it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something I'm proud of more than anything, is saving my marriage, keeping us together, and living a life of honesty and integrity in a world where so many people are lost and so many marriages end in divorce.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our family philosophies is to live a life that would stand up to the scrutiny of transparency, right? Just live a life that would be like, if everyone saw everything, because people can say bad things, they can make stuff up, but like ultimately, if you're just living that life where you go, come audit, right? Like, um, that's super powerful.
Amen.
And one of the things my pastor says, is, he told me that a mentor had shared with him is that your influence will never grow wider than your character runs deep. Your influence never grows wider than your character runs deep. And the work that you did of healing your character and solidifying your character and cleaning up your character and creating a rock solid character then became the foundation that was so solid that boom, you put that together with the vulnerability, the solid character, and then your normal your actual expertise and work ethic, and maybe some coaching along the way, and just like boom, here you are, a completely changed life. Um, it's really, really inspiring, Ian. It's really, every part of this to me is inspiring. Um,
Thank you.
and we're really proud of you. Where should people go if they want to learn more about you and what you're doing, and like especially if
Yeah.
they're like in
I,
sales?
And I think you just nailed it, right? You can't build your brand from a shaky foundation. You can't build your business unless you've done the work on yourself. Because once you've done that, it will shine through your content, through your energy, through your transparency, and through your stories, frankly, because you're going to have the stories that really people connect to in a place of authenticity and truth and vulnerability. And so that's right. Once that work was in a good place, I could focus on the brand. I left Salesforce, I put in service, and the rest was history. I went from 533 in 2021 to 1.5 to 2.5, and last year to 3.5, and it's been a steady progressive growth. But it all started with doing the work on myself. And I just encourage anyone listening to face your demons, face your fears, be honest, be truthful, do the inner work, because it's going to help you ultimately in your business. You can't be one thing in your business and be something else in your personal life. And I think that's something not a lot of people really speak to, and it's really important. So if people want to follow me, there's really three channels that I'm on. You can go to untapyoursalespotential.com. That's where, if you wanted coaching or any kind of support with your business in the sales capacity, that's the best place to go and talk to my team. YouTube, I have over 500 videos posted now, mostly sales training.
Wow.
I post on mindset, habits, and selling skills. I've been doing every single week a new video, and then we cut up, we do some shorts. But I've been doing that content diamond for the past,
Yeah,
well,
baby. Content
6 years
diamond.
now.
Shout out to Brand Builders
Six
Group.
years.
Following the system.
Every week without fail, posting twice a day on LinkedIn, and doing a new video every week via newsletter. So YouTube is great. LinkedIn's where I kind of live from a social standpoint, not Instagram or TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn, Ian Koniak at LinkedIn. And yeah, I have a newsletter as well where I send out a new video training every week. And we just launched a free course. It's a 12-week course. It's called The Fundamentals of Elite Tech Sales. If you want to Google that, you can get that as well for anyone listening.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I love, I love seeing the fundamentals as part of this story, right? There's this whole personal aspect, but there's another part that's just like getting clear on your brand positioning, who your audience is, doing the content diamond, starting with one-on-one coaching, like so many of the things that we teach people to do, and go, you don't have to be a believer in God to like learn from Ian's story about what has happened. But man, if you're not a believer, you got to at least go, what a powerful redemption story of like, you going to the rock bottom. And I think that's sometimes I think we experience rock bottoms because that's when we start paying attention to God. We start paying it. We really in our lives, we really start paying attention to God when we have no other option. Like when we're out of hope, once we've exhausted everything else and we've tried all the different things, then we start paying attention to God, and it's like, and He's there, and He will be there, and He will meet you. And you're a real life living example of that redemption story. And it's inspiring, and it's hopeful, and it's powerful, and it's courageous. So thanks for sharing it, buddy. And thanks for being here. And thank you for the privilege of letting us be a little part of all you're doing.
Thank you for your mentorship, your guidance, your example. Thank you for putting out your faith in your channels, and it's admirable, and I just love what you're doing as well, and I'm grateful to be part of it. So thank you so much.